Hey, this is Rachel Hatfield, and I am here with Faye O'Neill. She is a licensed MSW, so social worker, and she is licensed in Oklahoma. She is practicing in an agency in Oklahoma, and she also has a unique practice of yoga and therapy, and also doing yoga as a yoga instructor and a yoga teacher. I'm trying to think of that. RDT is what I think it's called. Registered, no? Oh,
RYT or CYT. Yeah, certified yoga teacher.
Yeah, okay. So thank you so much, Faye, for being here with me today and talking a little bit about what you do. I really appreciate it. I have a passion of figuring out how we can incorporate yoga into doing the work that we do to help people heal. So I'm really excited about hearing what you have to say about that. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for reaching out to me.
Yeah, no problem. So Faye, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, currently, as you said, I'm a licensed master social worker. I've been a child and adolescent therapist for going on a year now. Before that, I was a care coordinator for about 5 years. Then decided to kind of switch gears a little bit and become a therapist. And during that time, during grad school, during the first 2 years of grad school, I also went to yoga school. I got my 200-hour certification, then my 300-hour. I did the trauma-informed yoga therapy training. And then right after I graduated, I also started learning about iRest, integrative restoration, which is a yoga nidra meditation practice. So I'm now a level 2 iRest facilitator. So in addition to that, I've been teaching until COVID anyways, I've been teaching some iRest and gentle yoga at 12 and 12, which is a drug and alcohol rehab facility in Tulsa. Yeah. So as much as my clients will allow me, I try to incorporate mindfulness practices into therapy.
Okay. I have no clue what iRest yoga is. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So iRest it is a secularized version of an ancient practice called yoga nidra. A psychologist and yogic scholar named Richard Miller created it. He was asked by the VA to create a secularized version of this practice to help with veterans with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries and their families. So it's a 10-step protocol that they go through. It's a meditation practice. Helps them. It's really not a guided meditation. It's more of a deep practice of self-inquiry. So they will cultivate an inner resource of being and well-being within themselves. It's always there and always accessible to them. They'll work to define what's called their heartfelt desire and intention. So that could be their purpose in life. That kind of helps guide everything that they do. There's a body scan. So there's a lot of body awareness, work on interoception, breath awareness, and then you go through different stages where you're focusing on body sensations and their opposites, emotions and their opposites, thoughts and beliefs and their opposites, and then moving into an awareness of joy and then pure awareness, and then integrating that back into their daily life. And they learn to practice that little and often throughout their day, and it kind of helps reset their set points so that they're when they're faced with any challenge, they're able to meet that from a calm place.
So is this a type of therapy or is it a type of yoga?
Good question. So, kind of both. It's not a therapeutic intervention on its own. There's no processing going on. It's more of an adjunct treatment, just like yoga is. Like yoga wouldn't be a standalone therapeutic intervention on its own either.
Okay. So it's something you can integrate into your therapy practice if you're trained.
Absolutely. Yes.
And it sounds
has a lot of similarities I've found with somatic experiencing. Since we started that training, I've noticed a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It sounds like a lot of similarities with somatic work, whether it's somatic experiencing or EMDR or other type of somatic therapies. It sounds like
absolutely
aligned with that. It's exciting to hear. There's a specific training for that, though. So iRest is what it's called.
Yep. Little I, big REST. He said that when he was trying to come up with a name for it, because at the time the military wasn't real big on doing yoga, because they're big and tough, they don't do yoga, so he had to come up with a different name, just to make it more approachable and accessible to that population. So at the time, it was everything, iPhone, iPad. So he came up with iRest, which again stands for integrative restoration. So basically, you're restoring yourself back to that ground of being of wholeness and integrating that into your life.
Yeah.
In every way.
Integrative restoration. I love that. Restoring yourself back to your wholeness. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about how you got into all of this and how you wound up here in this field.
Well, let's see. So I've always been interested in psychology. So it kind of just started with that basic interest. And then I went through a few years where I had some pretty challenging experiences, some traumatic experiences that I went through. Started noticing that I was having some anxiety, but at the time I didn't realize that that's what it was. I don't think I even knew what anxiety was, honestly. And at the time I was working in insurance and I ended up having a full-blown panic attack at work, but I didn't know it was a panic attack. I was a single mom. I thought I was having a heart attack and I was going to die, and that just kind of exacerbated it. So I ended up going in an ambulance to the hospital, and they diagnosed me with generalized anxiety disorder. And so it kind of piqued my interest and I started researching it. I remember coming across biofeedback and reading about that and just how you can learn to regulate your nervous system. It was just fascinating to me. So at some point, I think I came to yoga for the same reasons a lot of Westerners come to yoga, just for the physical aspect of it, physical fitness. But like a lot of people who start a yoga practice, they find that there's so much more to it. And that's what I found. I no longer take any anxiety medication. Any depression I was experiencing, I've been able to cope with that with my yoga practice. It's basically changed my life. And I think that any time that you find something that has such a profound effect on you, you want to run through the streets telling everybody about it. So, I had this love of psychology and this love of yoga. And then when I moved to Bartlesville, I remember driving past my agency and thinking, I want to work there. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up working there. I had no experience whatsoever. I just finished my bachelor's degree in psychology. So again, I started as a care coordinator. And I remember my first annual review, they asked us what our 1-year goal was and what our 5-year goal was. And I put that I wanted to become a therapist and I wanted to be a yoga teacher and I wanted to find a way to incorporate those two together. And I just felt that along the way, the universe has kind of put things in my way that have helped me reach goals. And I've just kind of picked up every little stone along the way. And this is where it's brought me. So, like I said, I started grad school in 2016. that very same month, I started yoga school in Tulsa, went through 2 years of training for that. And so here I am, living the dream.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. So I know when I met you was at Somatic Experiencing Beginning One training. So we were starting this cohort journey together. And it seemed like you had a little bit different knowledge than what I had, because the way that you would talk about things was still, you talked more about felt sense and different things like that. I've always, from a therapist perspective, that I have no yoga background, a little bit, like maybe I did it a couple times, but that was it. And so I really have that knowledge. And then, but I always worked with the nervous system from a somatic approach in therapy, with the central nervous system, the autonomic nervous system in mind, with polyvagal theory and things like that. But just hearing the way that the different practitioners there talked that had experience with yoga was enlightening, because it just made me realize how integrated all of this is.
Yeah.
How healing the whole process is from all these different backgrounds. The same, I call them common factors. The same common factors are what's there that's healing. And so
absolutely,
it's how we can all be speaking the same thing. Like, awesome.
Yeah. I found, and that's another thing that I found fascinating is, the theoretical perspective that most therapists work from is CBT. And there's been all these studies on how effective it is, and that's why people use it. And I always just find it interesting how, CBT it's not anything new. They were doing it with mindfulness practices thousands of years ago. They've just put a secular spin on it, and they've had more of a focus from a top-down approach. In the West, in the East, where a lot of these things came from, it was more of a bottom-up approach, and they found that to be more effective. And I just think it's a beautiful practice. It's a beautiful way to embark on your healing journey.
And I really think that CBT gets a bad rap for things, because people take it and they run with the whole behavioral aspect of it, the cognitive and the behavioral. And then they say, those that are watching this, cognitive behavioral therapy is what we're talking about, right? And but I've done some training with and listening to Judith Beck and Aaron Beck. They talk about mindfulness and emotions integratively as well. And they have a CBT approach that uses mindfulness. And so I know that people who want to just separate these two are trying to put everything in one little box, whenever it seems like they need to be looking at the big picture, because even people who founded and developed those systems didn't do away with the mindfulness practices. They incorporated that into their stuff. And I think it's a lot better for sure with the top-down approach. The top-down approach, again, we want to talk a little bit to that, of what that means, top-down and bottom-up, for people who aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, so top-down, you can think of it two ways. It uses the top portions of your brain, or you can think of it as you're working through your thoughts. Bottom-up is working more on the bottom back parts of your brain, like your brainstem and the amygdala, or you can think of it as you're focusing on the body when you're in therapy.
Okay.
So which approach you're taking, and I personally believe it should be both.
And I agree. I do both. I do top-down and bottom-up approaches, techniques, in both sides. So I use a little bit of CBT, and I use a lot of mindfulness and somatic stuff, and incorporate both of those together, and they seem to work wonderfully.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that I believe in embodied cognition. I believe we can't separate our cognition from our body. It is one in everything, and we have to think about the whole. So, yeah. So tell me a little bit about if there's anything starting this journey that you could have known whenever you were starting out that you know now. What would that be that you wish you would have known?
So I've thought about that question. And one of the answers I came up with was, if I had known how difficult this journey would be, I don't know that I would want to know that ahead of time, because it might have scared me away from it. But although it's been super challenging, it's been super rewarding. I think that you can also find that it takes you kind of down a rabbit hole. You can go a million different ways with these practices and your approach to therapy. I think it helps to find a niche that piques your interest and kind of suits you and your personality, and kind of focus on it that way. Otherwise, like I said, you could just go down several different rabbit holes and it can become a little overwhelming, I think, at times.
It can be overwhelming for sure. And I think that it's good for us to know ahead of time the journey that we're going to begin. But I've heard that statement about, if I knew all of this, I may have not started. And so I wonder how many of us honestly, knowing the politics behind what we do, the paperwork behind what we do and everything, and all we, starting out in grad school, all we want to do is just help people. We're like,
yes, we think it's all rainbows and butterflies. We're just going to go out there and wave our wand. Everyone's going to be happy. Yeah, you have to learn pretty quickly to not become attached to outcomes. We're planting seeds.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's a lot of people that I've heard, even some people who have, that are no longer in the field because they've chosen, they're like, I learned too much. I don't want to be in this field anymore. And that's okay. Their journey. But I do believe that we as therapists starting out have to have a strong support network of people to rely on whenever it gets tough, because
yes,
I was in charge of I was in charge of an agency that had several facilities on the clinical side. So I was a clinical director, and I don't know how many new therapists I had coming in that were coming into a day treatment setting that struggled, that were like, this wasn't what I expected. This isn't what to hear the stories that we have to hear to handle to sit with people in their darkness or in their difficulty is a very challenging job. Definitely weighs on us, and it's important that we take care of ourselves and we have a positive support network for us to help balance that and counter any type of negative impacts that can have on us, because it gets heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's extremely important to do your own work. There's a quote that I really like. I don't remember who said it, or I may not have the exact words, but it's something along the lines of your ability and capacity to sit with your own emotions, your own darkness, your own pain is a direct reflection on how you can do that with other people. So you have to be able to do that with yourself, do the work yourself, be grounded yourself, and have that support as well. You're going to help other people, especially, I believe, with these embodied practices, because trying to teach something like this when you haven't experienced it yourself, you can do it, but it's not going to be as effective. You have to speak from your own experience and from your own felt sense of the experience to be able to convey that and teach that to other people effectively.
Yes, definitely. And I think sometimes you don't realize what those experiences are going to be right away until you start paying attention to it. It's something I learned from my somatic study. I mean, I know I was eager and ready to learn everything I could going into that training, and I'm like, let's do this. I want to just dive in. And they're like, slow down, and you're like, I don't know how to do that, And so, one of the things
I need to do this too. Hold on.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in. And so I volunteered to be the front of the thing for the first time. And I'm like, yes, let's do this. And I get up there, and then I forgot that I have stage fright. And my dorsal vagal response kicked in, and all of a sudden I'm like,
yep.
There's all those people out there. And I teach classes all the time, but it kicked in that time, and I was like, oh, wait a minute.
But you're being super vulnerable when you do that. You're not just public speaking. You're bearing yourself to these people who are sitting there watching you, and it kind of gives you a taste of what it's like for our clients. I mean, there may not be a crowd of people watching, but it's still a big level of vulnerability for sure.
Yeah, it was so interesting because I was like, I got this. I teach all the time. Ain't no problem. And then every bit of that stage fright came right back. And I was like, nope. Oh, I like that thing. I'm going to start that thing instead of all these people. And so it's funny. Paying attention to ourselves can be an interesting journey, but it's fun and exciting and scary at the same time, and helps you really you as in process through that and know your clients too. So I think that's really a great thing. One of the things that I like to know always from all the therapists that I've been talking to is, what kind of advice would you give to another therapist starting out in this practice?
Well, I think just what I just said is to make sure you've done your own work, make sure you have a strong practice of your own. A lot of these practices, it's not just it's not just helping the other person regulate their nervous system. You've got to regulate yours as well, because it's a process of co-regulation. And if you, just like we tell parents when they're dealing with a kid that's upset, they have to approach it from a calm state themselves. So you have to do your own work first. You have to be aware of what's going on inside of you while you're in therapy. So you're tuning into what's going on with their nervous system as well as yours at the same time. So
yeah,
it's a lot of practice.
It is a lot of practice. So one way that we say that in as a play therapist, from a play therapist perspective, is we say you have to be the thermostat and not the thermometer.
I love that.
Escalate what the temperature is and not escalate with the temperature of the room. So we experience that whenever we're working with them. So that's something I think is difficult to do, easy to say.
Yes, very difficult to do.
But it's great practice, and it can help us to escalate situations for sure.
Yeah.
So what type of resources do you feel like have been just extremely beneficial for you in your learning?
The best resource for me has been, like you said, other therapists that do this type of work. All these books behind me, they've been very helpful. There is an enormous amount of information on the internet. There's trainings online, especially now with COVID, like everything's moving online. So there's tons of trainings online. My yoga community in Tulsa has been a huge resource for me. We bounce ideas off of each other. We kind of see what everybody's doing, get advice that way.
Yes. So having
my clinical supervisor.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your favorite memory working in this project?
My favorite, I can't narrow it down to just one, but I would say my favorite memories are just yoga school. I swear I learned more in yoga school than I've learned anywhere else in life. I learned more about trauma-informed practices, the nervous system. It just opened my eyes to this whole world, and I fell in love with it. It's an excellent community. I made a ton of lifelong friendships, like-minded people, and it's been invaluable. And, I wish I could just go to yoga school every weekend just to hang out and socialize. We have so much fun. So those memories I'll cherish forever.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I'm doing an online program for yoga. It's called the Trauma Focused Yoga Therapy. And I talked to you briefly about doing the yoga certification. I really am passionate about it because I feel like it is an area that I feel I have like-minded people in. I definitely think about our internal energy and all those things. I believe that we all have value, and looking inwardly for that compassion and that love and that value and that power that we have. Mm-hmm. So important, and I think vital for our survival. I really do, for thriving.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And for a long time, I felt that way, and I keep coming up with these ideas. But then whenever I started doing that online training, it started talking about ideas that were like that. The same way with somatic work, I was like, I already do these things. And I felt like I was kind of just pulling them from places. And then I found this practice it was all laid out. It was like,
Yeah.
I've been doing this for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Like, wow. So I'm not just making this stuff up.
That's how I felt when I started to learn more about yoga. I'm like, and then learning about psychology. I'm like, these are the same thing. Different approaches. They're the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Just a different language. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very validating, I think, in how we think and the practices we do for ourselves. It's like, oh my gosh, this is really a thing, and it really does work.
Yes, it's amazing. And it's nice to have someone that's gone before us to lay that footwork too, and to say,
Absolutely.
when you're a little lost in it, you go, oh, wait a minute, people have gone before me and done this, and this is what it is. Mm-hmm. You have those partners and that great networking system to rely on. Well, that's always helpful.
Absolutely. So,
again, thank you so much for being with me. But before we close, is there anything that you feel like you would just love for people to meditate on and know before we end our video?
Yeah, so I actually took a lot of notes to get ready for this. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about different types of trauma, of how yoga can work with trauma, so I've had a lot of people ask me, why does yoga help with trauma, or how does it help with mental illness? Like, they don't get it, because a lot of people in the West think yoga is just an exercise. So it can be an exercise, but that's just one of the many benefits. So if you look at the outcomes of PTSD and complex PTSD, complex trauma, any sort of relational violence, you look at the outcomes of that, such as disempowerment, disconnection from others, loss of a sense of self, loss of agency, and just having this core belief that the world is unsafe, that other people are unsafe, that we ourselves are unsafe, our body is unsafe. Yoga hits on all of these things. Through these practices, we can interact with the world to get our needs met. So we're building a sense of agency and a sense of control over our lives, and being able to interact and affect change in our lives. We learn that people are generally safe, the world is a safe place, and that, I think most importantly, that we're worthy of care. A lot of times when you experience trauma, not only do you have a disconnection from others, but you may have a disconnection with your body. You may feel like your body has turned against you. So if you look at the theoretical underpinnings of trauma-informed yoga, which are trauma theory, attachment theory, and neuroscience, all those address these things. But not only trauma, it can treat depression, anxiety, panic, insomnia, pain management, addiction. I remember one point in my research, I learned how with complex PTSD, you lose a sense of localized sensation in your skin. So you may notice that something is touching you, but you can't tell where. It talked about how people who self-harm, that this may be something that they're experiencing. They may be trying to feel something or to not feel something. So it kind of ties into that. And then I also kind of wanted to touch on the trauma-informed care framework and how yoga falls underneath that. There's actually, from my research, I found there's actually 3 different levels of that. So, and I found this to be so helpful because, again, I talked about how overwhelming all the information out there, and I feel like this kind of puts it in a really good framework as to what exactly you're wanting to do with this yoga practice and therapy. So there's trauma-informed yoga, which is kind of the level 1 of trauma-informed care, and it's more broad. It's more for the general public. They do things like just trying to reduce the amount of triggers that are in a class. But it's not clinical practice. It's not specific to trauma. They're just trying to reduce as many triggers as possible. So you may do things like be careful of the language you're using, be mindful of what music you're using, if any. Maybe don't use sense or touch in your class because those could never know what's going to trigger somebody. Then there's kind of the level 2, which would be trauma sensitive yoga. Again, it's still not necessarily for trauma survivors, although it can be an intervention for people who've experienced trauma and adversity. So it narrows the focus a little bit more, but it's still more yoga focused. There might be a high population of trauma, but they may not be seeking treatment for it. This type of trauma-informed yoga or trauma-sensitive yoga, it helps with things like self-esteem, anxiety, depression, insomnia, pain, and it's more about trying to facilitate or achieve a certain state. So maybe you're working on self-regulation, and you can use things like all the different tools that yoga offers, like the yoga poses. You might use specific ones to achieve a certain state. So maybe you're using forward folds to kind of down-regulate the nervous system a little bit. Or if you're wanting to upregulate, you might focus on back bends more. You might use specific pranayama or breathing techniques to achieve a certain state. Mudras, which is just like hand yoga, you might do to achieve a certain state. Mantras.
What are mantras?
Mantras they're basic. I don't want to do them a disservice, but just to help everybody's general understanding, it's a word or a phrase that you repeat. So you can think of it as a positive affirmation that you repeat. Like, I am enough. I am strong. I am okay. I am safe. Something like that. They might be working to notice and release tension in the body, these meditation practices, all these different parts of a yoga practice, because yoga is not just asana. There's actually 8 limbs to a yoga practice, which, again, I didn't know that either until I went to yoga school. So then there's the level 3 trauma-informed care of yoga, and it's more trauma-specific. It's evidence-based to reduce specific trauma symptomology, specifically with complex trauma, complex PTSD, and relational violence. The only goal of this type of trauma is to increase interoception. So interoception, you kind of touched on the felt sense, but I've actually learned that interoception and felt sense are actually not the same thing. So felt sense is more broad. It's not just the sensation in your body. It's kind of the meaning and the inner knowing that goes along with it, which I could go down a whole new rabbit hole on that. But interoception is just basically the process of receiving, accessing, and appraising internal bodily signals. So it's when you're hungry, you know you're hungry. When you're tense, you know you're tense. Just noticing the sensations in your body. Because when you've gone through trauma, again, you might cut off the awareness of your body. Your body you may feel like your body betrayed you. You may feel like the sensations in your body cause too much overwhelming pain, which starts to lead you down re-experiencing past trauma. So that's why a lot of these top-down approaches are not helpful with trauma, because you're trying to get them to talk about and in detail these traumatic experiences, and it can become overwhelming to them, and they shut down and you never see them again. So the idea with this is to increase interoception. Another thing I wanted to touch on is, so people who've experienced intense trauma, their focus is not inward most of the time. It's usually outward. So they're more hypervigilant to exteroception. So they're looking around their environment. They're watching for cues of threat That's where the hypervigilance comes in with PTSD. So what you want to do in this type of yoga practice is you want to decrease as much as you can any cues of threat in the environment as much as you can so that they're able to bring their focus inward, because that's the entire focus of this. You're not focusing on alignment. You're not focusing on self-regulation. You're not trying to achieve a state of calm. The whole focus is on interoception, body awareness, which is rebuilding those neural pathways that get damaged in trauma.
That's why you said it was important for us to make sure that we have a safe environment to do this in.
Absolutely. It allows them to experience having a body that's their own, which, as we know, is the basis of having a tangible sense of self. Instead of I think, therefore I am, it's I sense, therefore I am. I can feel my body. I know I have a body. I know I'm here.
I like that.
Yeah.
Where I am. You know, a lot of this stuff, like you said, this is yoga practice, but also in therapy, we focus on making sure that we have a safe environment for clients to feel like they can build that trust with us, and we can help them develop that interoception, because, and we don't call it that, but that's exactly what we want them to do, is gain insight and awareness, self-awareness.
Yep, and body awareness. Yeah. So the main key concepts of this form of trauma yoga is choice making. So they're getting to practice making choices about their body in real time in the present moment. That's another important aspect of interoception. It's always present moment awareness. And with trauma, you tend to be stuck in the past. We're re-experiencing the traumatic event. So when you're focusing on your body and interoception, you're in the present moment. So you're practicing choice making. You're getting to share that power with the facilitator. It's not them directing you and telling you what to do and when to do it or how to do it. Language is extremely important. You're using invitational language. Let's see what else. Another important part is that it's a shared, authentic experience. So in typical public yoga classes, you'll see the instructor at the front, maybe walking around, giving cues, maybe doing adjustments, and they're not typically doing the practice with you. But with trauma yoga, it's completely different. You're at the front of the room, you're doing the practice with them, you're noticing your own interoception, and you're relating that to them. So it's a shared, authentic experience, which helps to build back that trust in relationships. See if I'm missing anything. The non-coercion, so you're not trying to get them to do anything. The whole point is for them to notice what's happening in their body and for them to be able to take action to either increase that sensation or decrease that sensation. It's all about choice and empowerment and building trust and relationship again. So
wow.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
It sounds awesome. It really sounds amazing. I am so excited to continue to learn about the process too. So you said that earlier that when people allow you to incorporate this into the practice you try, do you find that people aren't as open to using yoga and therapy as well, or?
Yeah, they're pretty open to it. I think that I work with mostly adolescents, mostly teens. So a lot of them, they don't want to talk about stuff. They don't feel safe doing it. So I try to approach it this way and let them know, listen, we don't have to go into details about this stuff now. We can just work on you feeling safe here with me, you feeling safe in your body. I don't do a lot of the asana in practice. I haven't done a whole lot of it. I do more just focusing on it. Oh, I'm sorry. Asana is the yoga forms, the postures.
Like the movements,
yes
that they do. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't done a lot of it in individual practice, but I've done groups. I was actually working to, I was in talks with an agency here called Ray of Hope, which is a domestic violence advocacy center. And we were in talks to start a group there to do trauma-informed yoga and mindfulness. And then COVID hit, so kind of put that on the back burner. But, I've been kind of toying with the idea of doing it online. So I think that if you put it out there, the right students will come. They'll come looking for you.
Yeah.
If they're not into it, they're not into it. Maybe it's not for them. Maybe they're not ready for it yet.
Well, I'm going to post your information, your Facebook group, and your information about the services that you provide and different things in the description below. Is there any other details or information you would love for people to have as a resource? I'll definitely post the iRest.
Okay. Yeah, and I can send you the web link for that. Nothing off the top of my head. I maybe give a shout out to Everyone Yoga School in Tulsa, which is where I got my start in my yoga training. Sundara Yoga Therapy, they came to Everyone Yoga School from Austin to do our trauma-informed yoga training. And iRest and somatic experiencing now. So if you're interested in somatic practices, maybe look into that. So
yes, and I'll post all of those things down below for sure. Thank you so much for being with me today. I've learned so much, and I look forward to learning more from you.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Okay, so I'm just going to guide you guys through a short little practice of what a trauma-specific yoga class might look like, just to kind of give you an idea of how it might be different than a public class or even a trauma-sensitive class. So I would encourage you to do this in a chair. That's what I'll be cueing it from. So just grab a comfortable chair, preferably one that you don't sink into. It has some stability and support underneath you. And then hopefully your feet can touch the floor. I'm kind of short, so I've got yoga blocks under my feet just to kind of bring the floor up to me. But not everybody has those, so you can just scoot forward and bring your feet flat on the floor. So I'll just invite you to join me in seated mountain pose. So just find a comfortable seated position. Scooted forward on your chair, your feet flat on the floor. And you might begin with just noticing your feet on the floor. You might have them hip width apart, or you might experiment with bringing your legs and feet closer together and see how you like that. So you've got a couple choices here. And maybe notice the lengthening up of your spine towards the ceiling. You might notice some engagement in your core. Maybe noticing the sensation of the chair supporting you under your sit bones and the backs of your legs. Noticing the movement of your breath. So when you breathe in, you might notice movement in your abdomen, your ribs, your chest, your shoulders. And then again, you may not notice anything at all, and that's okay as well. We're just noticing what is our experience in this moment. You have the opportunity to do this practice with your eyes open or closed. Maybe experiment with both of them. But maybe just focusing right now on the connection of your feet on the floor, the chair underneath you supporting you, and sensations of lifting and lengthening up through your spine and the crown of your head towards the ceiling. This is a yoga form you can do really just about any time. You can do it sitting down, you can do it standing up, you can do it while you're standing in line at the grocery store. Just noticing the ground underneath you, noticing any sensation in your body. And as you're ready, if you like, you might try some neck rolls. So you can just drop your chin down towards your chest. You might notice some sensation in the back of your neck, shoulders, maybe in your core as it works to keep you stable. And then again, you have more choices here, so you can start to rock your head side to side if you like. And you get to decide how fast you move when you do this. You can choose to stay on one side longer, or you can choose to come back to center and stop. Completely up to you. But noticing the stretching of the muscles on the side of the neck, the back of the neck. And then you can, if you want a little bit more, if you would like another choice, you can start to roll your head back. You can make complete circles. You can make half circles. Just moving, breathing, and noticing. And then as you're ready, coming back to neutral, eyes open or closed, maybe noticing if any of the sensation has changed, and it may have and it may not have. There's no right or wrong. We're simply noticing what is. And then if you'd like, we can try some shoulder circles. So if you'd like to try that, you can bring your fingertips to your shoulders. This might be enough for you, but if you'd like some more, you can start to rotate your elbows. You can move them forward, or you can move them backwards. You also have the option to just do one at a time. You can choose to make the pace faster or slower. And you might notice some sensation in your shoulders, in your upper back, your chest, your upper arms. You might notice the longer you do this, you might notice some heat beginning to build in your muscles. And just remembering that you can continue, or you can take a break or stop whenever you like. You can switch direction. And when you're ready, just relax your arms back down on your thighs or on your sides. And again, just noticing, maybe letting your eyes close if you're comfortable with that. Noticing if there's any difference between when you started and when you ended. You might notice your heart rate, your breath rate, noticing again the movement of the breath in the body. Maybe notice the temperature of the air as it flows in your nostrils, going down the back of your throat, and then coming back up and out. Notice if there's a change in the temperature. And then as you're ready, if you'd like to try another one, we can do some seated side bends. So you might try relaxing your arms down, extending your arms down by your sides, maybe having your palms facing out. And if you like, you can reach up, bring your fingertips together, and then maybe drop one arm down by your side while reaching up through the other arm. Feel the lengthening of your side body. And then when you're ready, leaning to the side. You might notice some sensation on that side of the body that's lengthening. And you may notice some sensation in the side of the body that's contracting. And it's your choice here how far you want to lean over. It's also your choice if you want to come out of it a little bit and pulse back in. So you've got a choice on the intensity, the movement, and how long you do it for. You might start to notice some sensation, some tingling in your fingertips above your head. And then you might want to try the other side. So switching sides, bring the opposite hand up towards the ceiling, grow tall, notice the lengthening in your side body, and then leaning to the other side. And notice the stretching sensation on that side of the body. And you can choose to stay here, or you might switch, coming back and forth between each side.
There we go.
And then as you're ready, just coming back to center, relaxing everything down again, just noticing what you're feeling in your body. Maybe bringing your attention back to your feet on the floor. Noticing if there's been any release of tension, or if you still feel the same, that's also a possibility. Just keeping in mind that our goal is not to release tension, it's just to notice if there is tension. And then as you're ready, if you'd like, we can do some seated twists. So for this, the encouragement is to begin with a tall, straight spine. And then you can simply turn to one side. Again, you have the choice here on how far you go into this. You can take one hand behind you and you can pull yourself in deeper if you like. You have the choice with where you position your head. You can look forward still. You can look to the side, or you can look over your shoulder behind you. You might notice some sensation in your torso, maybe an opening of your chest as you look behind you. Maybe some sensation in your chest, your waist, your back. And you can come out of it a little if you want to, and then deepen it again on the exhale. Or if you've had enough on this side, you can come back to center and switch the other side. Simply turning your torso to the opposite direction, possibly grabbing onto the back of your chair behind you to pull you in deeper if you like, if that feels good in your body today. Noticing sensation in your shoulder, possibly your neck, ribs, your waist, your hips. Maybe even noticing how this affects your breath. Maybe harder to get a full breath. And you may want to come out of the twist a little bit. See if you can get a fuller breath. Just listening to what your body is needing right now. As you're ready, coming back to center. And if you like, we can try some cat-cow. This is more of a movement practice. So you might try bringing your arms up like a goalpost, or you can try having your hands maybe on your waist or on the chair, wherever you feel more comfortable with your arms. And then if you like, you can lift your head up, look up towards the ceiling, maybe arch your back, and get a little bit of a back bend, noticing a stretch in your front body, your back body. And then when you're ready, you can round it forward, tuck your chin in, arching your back the opposite way, rounding it forward, noticing if maybe a good stretch on your back, upper and lower back. And then as you're ready, on the inhale, you might open it back up, looking up towards the ceiling. Your choice on how far you put your head back and how much you arch. And then maybe when you're ready, bringing it back forward, curling it all in. You might notice, again, sensation in your back, upper back, lower back, neck. And then you can move at your own pace here. So maybe breathing in as you look up, maybe breathing out as you come forward, or experimenting with switching it up. Experimenting with linking your breath and your movement together. You control the pace. Maybe try pulling your belly in towards your spine and noticing some activation in your core. And as you're ready, just coming back to neutral. Again, taking a moment just to notice your experience. You might notice, again, if there's been any release of tension, any change in your breath pattern. Without any expectation, just noticing what is. Now, if you'd like to get a little bit of a stretch on your legs and notice some sensation there, you can straighten your legs out in front of you. You might have to scoot further up on your chair. And then as you're ready, you can place your hands on your thighs and maybe start to walk your hands forward. Your choice on how far you come forward here. You might notice a lengthening and stretching of the fronts and back of your legs. You might notice your feet pressing more firmly with more pressure into the floor. Maybe a good stretch along the back of your body. And depending on how far forward you come, you may start to notice some pressure in your head and face. Maybe some tension in your neck. You might notice the sensation of your hands supporting you by placing them on your shins. And you can even experiment with lengthening up on the inhale and folding forward again on the exhale so you can bring some movement into it. Breathing and moving and noticing. And then as you're ready, walking your hands back up your legs. Taking a moment, letting everything settle. You might notice a change in the pressure in your head since you've come back up. Your breath rate may have picked up a little bit. Your heart rate. You might be noticing the soles of your feet on the floor again. And now I'm going to invite you to join me in a seated pigeon pose. This is more of a hip stretch. So you can skip it if you like, but if you'd like to join me, you might take one of your feet and move it more towards center, and then take your opposite ankle and cross it on top of the opposite thigh. Okay. This might be enough for you here. You might be feeling enough sensation here, and that's fine. You might experiment with flexing your toes up towards your shin. Maybe flexing and then pointing it and noticing how that changes the sensation. You might notice in your foot, your calf, your shin, your hip.
Taking my shoes off.
And that's okay. That's listening to your body. That's honoring what your body's telling you.
My feet. Rid of the rain. Okay.
Another option is that bottom leg. You can straighten it out in front of you, and that kind of takes some of the intensity off of the bent leg. So that might be another option. So you can try that. You can also try starting to fold forward a little bit if you like, and notice how that changes the sensation. Being mindful of that top foot. The encouragement here is to maybe keep that foot flexed a little bit, give some more added protection to your knee. You might notice some sensation in your back as you fold forward. The pressure of your top ankle resting on that thigh. You might notice more stretching in that hip. And then you might be ready to switch to the other side. Just slowly come back up. Uncross your legs. Switch the cross. And then you might notice that one hip may be tighter than the other, which is completely normal. That's how it usually is. You can see here that this hip of mine comes up a little bit further. So you may choose to stay here, or you may choose to fold forward a little bit, keeping that top foot flexed. I know for me, I notice more sensation on this side because it's my tighter side. You may notice that when you breathe in, your abdomen presses against your lower body. You notice that sensation. Your bottom foot may be pressing more firm into the floor. So noticing the movement of your breath, noticing sensation in your hips, your back. And then as you're ready, starting to come back up, uncross your legs, And just come back to a neutral position, taking a moment to notice the change in sensation if there is any. And then we'll end with one final yoga form. We'll do a forward fold. So a couple of choices here. Again, you can have your legs together if you like, or you can bring them further apart, maybe hip width apart. You might rock side to side a little bit to get a more stable foundation. And then as you're ready, walking your hands up onto your knees. And it's your choice here how far you go into this. This might be enough for you. You can come forward a little bit more. You can come all the way down if you like. You can bring your hands to the floor. You might try grabbing a hold of opposite elbows with your hands, making a box with your arms, and then just letting your arms and head and upper body hang heavy. You might notice your feet pressing in firmer on the floor. You might notice pressure in your face and head as your head comes below your heart. You might notice a change in how you're breathing. It may be harder to breathe because you're bent forward. You may be noticing a stretch in your back. You have the choice to change your position at any time. Maybe coming up and just resting your forearms on your thighs, leaning forward a little bit. And then as you're ready, taking your time coming up, you might come halfway up and then settle there for a moment. Just let your body adjust. And then finally coming all the way back up to center. So that's just a taste of what a trauma-specific yoga class might look like. As you can see, it's pretty accessible. There's a lot of different options you can take for the forms that you take. And the entire focus is on your body, how you're feeling in your body, the muscle dynamics, even the breath. It's not meant to calm. It's just to notice the movement of the body as you breathe.
Well, I definitely it was beneficial to go through all of those. I felt different sensations going through the movements and could my muscles feel less tense. I know that's not a focus, but they having the stress.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice side effect for sure. And self-regulation can be a nice side effect. The thing is if you don't have any interoception, if you can't notice your body and how it's feeling, how can you ever self-regulate? So to me, this is the first step. Building up those interoceptive pathways, those neural networks in your brain, and then adding on from there. So maybe once you feel like you've got a good handle on your body sensations, maybe then you can start working on some self-regulation skills.
Awesome. And so with called chair yoga, is that something that we just did?
Yeah, I would call it maybe trauma-specific chair yoga.
Something that I noticed was helpful was whenever you said to move forward in the chair, because I didn't do that in the beginning, but I noticed with the twist, I had a hard time with that because I didn't know what to do with my arm because I had the back of the chair. So moving forward in the chair and kind of resting on the front part of the chair if you're stable to do that, and you can, very helpful to do the movements. So I was able to get my arm behind me and help me a twist. And that was so beneficial.
Awesome.
I think that this is an amazing thing, and I think it would be even beneficial to do with some people telehealth wise because people are sitting in front of.
Absolutely, yeah. And as you can see, it's completely different than your hot yoga, power yoga classes that we're used to seeing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing this knowledge with us. And I will be posting your information in the descriptions below on ways that they might be able to reach out for some yoga work or doing any type of therapy if you have those, need any resources as far as that. But if you guys like to watch this video, please remember to subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know about new content we have coming out. If you have any suggestions on topics you would like to hear about or people you would like for me to interview, feel free to leave that in the comment description. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and like it. We'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you.